Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us today is Nick Barisheff, President and CEO of BMG Group. Great to see you, Nick.
Good seeing you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure having you back on. Nick, we know there's a supply and demand imbalance in the silver market. Do you believe we will ever see the true silver price discovery?
Yeah, I believe so because the issue with silver is that it's used as an industrial commodity, not just a speculative investment metal. So the Comex is actually a small part of it. And the thing is, we've now got a taste of what it's like to be out of, say, a chip. You don't build any cars without a chip. Well, the same is for silver. You don't build any Teslas, any solar panels, any Apple computers, iPhones, etc., without silver.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only replacements for silver from an industrial point of view are gold, platinum, and palladium, which are obviously more expensive. So there's no real alternative at the same price that has the same features. So I believe at some point in time, someone like Musk is going to wake up and say, oh shit, I'm out of business if I don't have silver. Writes a check for $5 billion and buys all the above ground supplies there is.
You were just telling us a story before we started recording of something that Ford did with palladium. Would you share that story with our audience?
Yeah, so that happened, I believe it was in 1998. And palladium is used for catalytic converters on gasoline cars. Platinum is used for diesel cars. So someone at Ford figured it out that if I don't have palladium, I don't make any cars. And this is the other kind of anomaly with silver is that in a car, say in a catalytic converter, there's less than 1 ounce of silver in palladium, I should say. But without that 1 ounce of palladium, you don't make a car.
Yeah.
In an iPhone, there's probably 50 cents worth of silver, but without it, you don't make an iPhone. So the other thing is, if the price of silver went from $25 to $250, it would have a negligible impact on the price of the iPhone. But without it, you don't make an iPhone at all.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be, a genius to figure out, well, holy shit, I'm in a business, better get a stash of silver. And so people that focus on the Comex and all the manipulation and all that won't matter because this is just, trading virtual silver and paper contracts. It doesn't have anything to do with real life.
Well, I think the chip shortage that we've been observing in recent months has really opened up a lot of people's eyes to this concept of, a car may have, 1,200 or, 13,000 parts in it, but if you're missing one, it doesn't matter. You got a big problem. Or if you're building a house, well, if you don't have windows available at the right time, you got a problem. And do you think more and more companies are going to start, I guess since Japan in the 90s, the just-in-time inventory was a business model. Right. It became almost a religion among business management types. Is that like going out the window and now we got a plan for these contingencies in the supply chain?
Unless we do some major changes, like the supply chain crisis has thrown that out the window. And we have two issues. We have, 100 cargo ships sitting outside of Los Angeles harbor that can't get unloaded. And the problems are solvable because in Europe, the ports operate at 24/7. But in Los Angeles and California, the unions don't work past 8 hours.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is, but the second part of the problem is when the ship does get in, they don't have enough truck drivers or trucks to put the containers on, and there's nowhere to put the containers.
Yeah.
Okay. And now they're going to add fuel to the fire. They're going to have a huge swath of truck drivers quit because they're not going to get vaccinated. And already we have a shortage of 80,000 truck drivers in the US and 18,000 in Canada already. But a bunch of them are going to quit because of the vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
Now, and on top of that, we add a labor problem. And it's not just, restaurants and hotels, it's factories, warehouses. They can't get anywhere near enough people to work because particularly in the US and Canada to a certain extent is people are making enough money on unemployment and all the additional support payments. So nobody wants to go to work. So when we take the supply chain crisis and the labor crisis and add the monetary printing that the Fed's printed $5 trillion over the last year, then we have a perfect recipe for stagflation. Like we're right in the middle. It's not theoretical, it's right here.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect recipe for a raging bull market for both silver and gold.
I know you follow the metals markets very closely. That's part of your business at BMG. Something I saw recently that jumped. Do you ever follow what's going on at the London Metals Exchange in some of the base metals? Well, they're proposing changing the rules at the London Metals Exchange. They almost ran out of copper a few months ago, and they're proposing changing the rules, preventing people from taking copper out of the warehouses in order to prevent running out. And this struck me as, what's the point of being a metals exchange if you're not going to let people take delivery of the metal? And it just struck me as, is that the future we're probably looking at for the silver supply?
That's already happened on the Comex as well. Like the Hunt brothers didn't do anything wrong. They bought futures contracts on the Comex and then surprised everybody by asking for delivery. And then what does the Comex do? They changed the rule, increased the margin limits, and gave them, a multi-million or $1 billion cash call, and it bankrupted them. So the precedent is there, but that's not where you buy the metals. We don't buy our metals on the Comex.
Yeah. Oh, I get you. It's that people are buying from the Comex is just sort of a paper pricing mechanism, but it does have some minor.
See, when you talk about pricing mechanisms, is that if you look at the price of a silver maple leaf, for example, on eBay and Amazon, I would say the average price is $50 Canadian. That's also a pricing mechanism.
Nick, we're starting to see fertilizer prices skyrocket, and you obviously need fertilizer for food production. So will we start seeing food crises happening soon?
Well, I think so. This is where it's critically important for everybody to stock up in food, because food's the kind of thing that it's, when you look at it as an investment, it's about the best investment you can make. Because a year from now, it's probably going to be 20% higher. And if it isn't, your downside is that you eat it. It doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, yeah. So Shadow Stats, he shows the old model from the 1980s for calculating inflation, Nick, and it's way over 10%. Do you believe we will see runaway inflation or not yet?
I think we're nearly there already. And when you consider how, just like in the 70s, oil prices drive everything, including like fertilizer and everything on down the line, then just from an increase in the oil prices and gasoline prices, everything else has to go up. So that's where we have the beginnings of the problem.
So the recent CPI number was 6.2%. Which is probably the high. I think that the previous high for this century was 5.4%. and the real number with shadow stats is probably much higher.
Yeah.
Is this, and I don't know if the housing number still hasn't even really started showing up in inflation yet. They seem to be hiding that with some of their ways to massage data.
Numbers are, it depends on where you look, but on average, they seem to be up almost 20%. So they're way up there. And in all these things, what's happening is you've got inflation in the goods and services that people need to buy in housing, but wages aren't anywhere close to keeping up.
Mhm.
And already, in order to attract labor, people are offering, signing bonuses and everything else, and they still can't get people to work. We're going to have a huge problem, starting with all the government employees, because you've got policemen, firemen, ambulance drivers, nurses.
Yeah.
Significant amounts are quitting rather than take the vaccine.
Yeah.
So same thing in the military. In the US, huge amounts of regular military are quitting. 150 Navy SEALs quit, 28 Top Gun pilots quit.
Wow.
And beyond insane.
Why do you think the media seems to be trying to convince everyone of this narrative, though, that inflation's good for you? Because it's not just this one I have on the screen. I've seen similar articles on MSNBC and in the Washington Post this same week trying to make this same point. And I don't know if it's just the powers that be that are trying to prepare us for this narrative, that it's going to get worse, but it's not a bad thing. I don't know. But
I lost track of when it happened, but the media has been anything but delivering the truth. It used to be you'd get both sides of the coin, but now it's all political rhetoric and mostly left-wing rhetoric.
Nick, with how big of a bubble we are in, are you surprised it hasn't popped yet?
Well, we're beyond where it should have popped, because if you look at the Buffett indicator, the Tobin ratio, the price earnings ratio, all these things, they're at or higher levels than 1929.
Wow.
And the thing is, when this happens, investors get caught up in the momentum and everything, and greed takes over. And the thing is, if you looked at it rationally, and the thing that happens is people say, well, yeah, it's a bubble, but when it pops, I'll get out. That's not what happens. What happens?
It's always the timing problem, right?
Well, you wake up one morning and it's down 10%.
Yeah.
So, well, I better not get out. I'll wait till it recovers and I'll get out then. But the next morning it's down 20%. Now you can't get out.
And now everyone wants out at the same time.
When you consider it, see, everybody's being sold on the fact of always stay invested. Always stay invested during a bull market. But when you're at the edge of the cliff, so let's say for ease of arithmetic, the market still has another 10% to go over the next few months. So you're hanging in for 10%. But if it turns, the decline could be 50 to 70%. When it declines 50 to 70%, if you're a baby boomer, you won't live long enough to break even. See, people forget that the 1929 crash took 40 years to break even. So the issue is to logically just step aside, take your money off the table, do your homework, because then you'll see that the best thing to do is put all your portfolio into real money, which is gold and silver, and then sit it out. Because if you don't sit it out, you're going to miss the opportunity of a lifetime, and that is the ability to buy in when it's tanked 70%. Like in 2008, the Dundee Dream Office REIT, which is a multi-billion-dollar Canadian REIT, declined to 84% in 2008. The dividend yield at the bottom was 20. So if you were out, didn't stay in, and simply bought in, then you're getting a 20% dividend yield from then on in.
Yeah, assuming it survives. Normally, when the dividend yields get that crazy, it's for a reason that the
What
yield
happened in the REITs is that, you see, the stock market took the price of the REIT down, but all the tenants were still there.
Yeah.
They didn't move. All the lawyers, the accountants, the brokers, they were still paying the same rent at the top and at the bottom.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's why you got the 20% dividend yield.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that by having the self-discipline to sit it out for whatever, I don't know, a month, several months, it's not going to last much longer because it's already beyond insane. So at some point, something out of the blue is going to cause it to turn. And usually it's something that people aren't expecting.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of those. And then when it happens that quickly,
Yeah.
that can't simply time, unless you've got stop loss provisions in the thing where you get out at a 10% decline. Most people don't,
Mhm.
because they keep waiting for, another 10%, another 10%.
Well, then that becomes the question of does the fear trade kick in? And quite often, when the fear trade happens, the dollar rallies and gold rallies. Even when they start moving in tandem, despite against their what normally happens. And I think it'll be interesting this time. I remember Lehman Brothers. I remember that weekend in 2008, and we didn't have crypto back then. And it'll be interesting. I'm thinking this time is going to be very interesting how the crypto markets behave when that crisis happens that you're referring to, whether crypto becomes a fear trade or whether that's a risk on asset that people run away from. I don't know if you've given any thought to that.
See, my concern about crypto all along, and China's already done it, is that the central banks of the world and the people that run them have a monopoly on creating money. You really think they're going to allow a crypto to exist to interfere with their monopoly?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you're right. They control the on ramps and the off ramps.
That's
And
right.
I actually just had this debate with someone yesterday about a lot of, and I'm not trying to bash crypto by any stretch of the imagination. I actually own one. I own XRP because my wife made me buy it. But the debate was, he thinks Bitcoin's going to take over the world. And my counter argument was, well, the governments can force every business to do their trade, their transactions in their sovereign currency in order to collect sales taxes, income taxes. Do you think the hair salon is going to stop?
The governments they're all developing their own cryptos. China's probably furthest ahead. So I'm not saying there won't be cryptos, but the government isn't going to allow, any competing currency.
Yeah.
And they'll create their own crypto, and then they'll ban everything else.
That's what I think is also likely, is there's going to be a European central bank crypto. Yeah. A US dollar crypto. And your local restaurant is not going to pick Bitcoin over the US dollar crypto because they have to pay their sales taxes in the US dollar crypto.
They'll put in some punitive measures that will make it unattractive. So that's the issue. But if the government has the crypto, then we're all really screwed, because then they can track every move you make.
Yeah.
If they don't like what you've done or you haven't paid your taxes, they cut you off.
Yeah.
Yep.
It will be interesting. Very interesting world we're living in. Well, Nick, thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate you giving us a half hour of your time. And
my pleasure.
we'd love to talk to you again in the next 3 months as the years develop, as next year develops.
Yeah, it'll be interesting in 3 months from now what the world's like.
Yeah, well, that's why we have the YouTube channel. We can look back on these videos and we can all go, "I told you so." And or if we're wrong, we delete the video so there's no evidence. That's our other strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again, guys. Take care.